All right, we are good. So, I mean, I was just mentioned to Lily, our guest today, Lucy. Why,
Lucy.
why did I say Lily? You
I
want to say
don't know.
Lily?
You got the L right. I'll take it.
Okay, well, my
You're like my
dog,
patients at work. I'm Lucy. I'm Lisa. I'm Lily. I'm anything.
my pug is called Lily.
Oh, there you go.
I have
So you're
three
saying I
pugs.
look like your pug?
Hey, she is she's the cutest pug in the
She's
world.
a pug? Okay, I'll allow it. Just this once.
But yeah, just for a, I suppose, disclaimer again for whoever listens to this podcast, it's more for my enjoyment, and if anyone wants to consume it, then hopefully you get some helpful information about it. But I haven't done this for like 3 years, and that's mainly because of one, like me and Lucy off camera talked about balancing social media and how you can kind of get addicted, but then there's helpful parts of it where you can actually speak to interesting individuals and learn things. And then two, having a baby and moving house and life. But yeah, I think it's something that I definitely want to start doing again. Hence why I kind of asked Lucy to join me today. And just super interesting individual, 21,000 followers on Instagram,
Crazy.
really quickly,
Mm-hmm.
almost Liver King-esque growth.
If you want.
But yeah, Lucy, just like I said, it's the whole reason why this podcast called Return of the Human, and I think podcast is probably as far away from being human as possible, but that's kind of the realm we live in, is just trying to get back to that point. And obviously with your journey of eating the way you do, ancestrally, carnivore, I just wanted to chat with you and hopefully understand kind of a bit more about how you just navigate that lifestyle and how that came to be, your origin story, I suppose.
Sure. So thank you for having me on. I'm happy to be here, speak to you. My name's Lucy. Like you said, I created an Instagram page called That Carnivore Nurse, and it's basically just showing people how I eat and explaining why I eat this way. So it's called the carnivore diet. So it's a diet that you eat foods from the animal kingdom, whichever foods you want, that's up to you. But it centers around fatty meat, and then the whole point is you just don't eat any plants, no plant materials at all, no fiber, no carbohydrates except the milk if you choose. And why I do this, it's very shocking for people. That's why I think my account took off, because I'm a nurse, I should say. So I'm coming from someone with experience in modern medicine and healthcare, and someone that then is eating a lot of cholesterol and a lot of saturated fat, which we've all been told is bad for us. So those two things coming together, I think, is why my account blew up so quickly, because it's quite shocking, and a lot of people don't know why, or even that it exists, and that's people actually do it. So it's intriguing. So why I came to this diet or way of eating, it's really a lifestyle. I mean, we use the word diet to convey like understanding, but it's not really it is a diet, but it's a lifestyle, and there's two things in my life that brought me to it. One was disordered eating as a teenager, and then the second was my experience as a nurse. So they both came together to land me in the carnivore diet. So I'll start with my personal eating background. When I was a teenager, I just moved out. I started my nursing course when I was 17, so I was very young. And I had the classic first year university student experience, drinking loads, eating absolute rubbish, not caring about anything. And, it served its purpose. I had a good time. But I found myself, I gained a little bit of weight, and I was feeling awful about that. I was very insecure. I'd always been very insecure about my body, just classic teenage girl situation. One day, I'm sure you'll experience that with your child.
Yeah.
So I panicked. I was like, oh my goodness, I need to lose this weight. I don't want to gain any more weight. And it started this very disordered view of food. And I became very restrictive. And, I was vegetarian. I was finding any way possible to minimize my food intake and lose weight. And I did it. I got very thin. I lost a lot of muscle. It was only about like a 5 to 6 month period, but it was very intense and it was very consuming. And, you know, I found myself in not a good way. I was physically exhausted. I felt awful. I'd broken down my body, and mentally I was just a mess because, you know, you get what you think you wanted. You pushed yourself, your body to that point, and you realize that you're really unhappy. And I came to that point like, wow, this is not right. I made a mistake here. So then I was addressed with, okay, how do I want to get better? What should I eat? What should I do? How can I heal myself? So that led me down, you know, discovering what sort of diet I should be eating to feel better and to feel good and to look after my body. And I don't think I realized the rabbit hole I was about to get into, but so I started with just whole foods. Obviously, that made sense to me. I knew that ultra processed foods were fake foods. We were always told junk food is bad for you. I didn't really understand why, but I just knew that. So I went down the whole foods route, a lot of pulses, lentils, loads of vegetables, loads of fruit. And I felt better because I was just eating more food. But I definitely didn't feel great. Not that I really knew, because I didn't really know what feeling really good even felt like. It was quite a sad situation, actually. But for example, at the time, I stayed in that space for maybe like a year. And, you know, my breakfast at that point was porridge and an apple. And it tasted nice. I would eat it, but I would feel so tired afterwards. I could just go to sleep. It was awful. And I was really confused because I was like, well, porridge is meant to be one of the best things you could eat for breakfast. And it's fruit, you know, it's good things. But I felt really bad and I didn't understand it. So I was like, something's wrong. Clearly something's wrong. This isn't working for me. Let's keep going. So then I got introduced into the world of ketogenic diets. I realized I was having sugar crashes and my blood sugar was just erratic and it was making me tired. So that, I think it was Dr. Eric Berg's videos were the ones that introduced me to whole keto. I'm sure maybe you've heard of him.
Yeah.
He's quite good for a keto. I think he's a good stepping stone. He loves vegetables, though. He loves his vegetables. So that I slowly naturally just went into that ketogenic space, loads of vegetables, but more meat, more eggs, more fat, lots of olive oil, loads of nuts. And I felt better. I was seeing it slowly feeling better. You know, not having that porridge in the morning made a big difference. And whilst this was all going on in the background, I'm studying to be a nurse. So I'm working all my different placements around all the hospitals in the city and lots of different departments. And one of them was I spent 6 weeks with the diabetes nurse specialists. So I was working in an outpatient clinic where the patients would come in, and then I was working in the inpatients in the actual hospitals where you'd go round the whole hospital to the diabetic patients to assess them. And that was eye-opening. It left me very confused, I was going to say. The general consensus that I got from that placement was obviously the diabetes is a condition where you have your blood sugar is too high. And that causes a lot of complications. And it needs to be treated, it needs to be managed. But the treatment that they took was eat as much sugar as you want, eat as much carbohydrate as you want, eat the cake if you want it, but just cover it with insulin. And insulin is a hormone that has lots of roles. One of the roles is it takes the sugar out of your blood and puts it into your cells. And I just didn't understand that because, well, one, it's actually it's a hard thing to do, to navigate your own insulin injections. These patients were being asked to count their carbohydrates and then that they're consuming, and then titrate the correct dose of insulin to give themselves. And I remember one of the patients asked them, okay, what's a carbohydrate? And what foods have carbohydrates in them? They asked, does chicken have carbohydrate? So these people were at a very minimal knowledge of what their disease even was and what diet was right. And then they were being asked to then count all these carbs and then titrate an insulin dose to meet that. And if you give yourself too much insulin, it could be fatal. So this isn't like a small thing. They're asking a big thing from these people that have very little knowledge. And I thought, wow, like that's very confusing. I don't think I'd manage to be able to count my carbs every day 3 times a day and then inject the right amount of insulin for the rest of your life. And manage that well and feel like that's a sustainable and like good way of like quality of life, So I was very, whoa, what is this? And in my head, I'm like, why don't we just not eat the cake in the first place? Why don't we just not put the sugar in the blood in the first place? And then we don't even have to deal with any of this, because that's confusing. So I left that placement confused. So whilst that was going on in my personal life with the food, and I was realizing there's a lot going on with ill health and the way that we're seeing ill health, they both came together to meet me at ketogenic diets. And I just became fascinated. I couldn't get out of my head. I was like, this is insane. We have a health epidemic, and diet is a huge, huge cause of it, yet no one's talking about it and no one wants to know. So I became fixated. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I wrote my dissertation for uni on low carbohydrate diets and and the barriers and facilitators for implementing them for patients with type 2 diabetes, because I understood there's a place for them. They could be very, very helpful in reversing diabetes and addressing the root cause. But why is no one doing it? Why aren't we talking about it? So that was what I wanted to find out. And during the research for that, that's when I stumbled upon Dr. Paul Mason's video on fiber. At this point, I was like quite ketogenic, loads of vegetables, lots of eggs, but loads of vegetables. I thought they were good for me. I thought I had to eat them, even though I didn't really want to. I remember chugging broccoli because at the start of my meal, just to get out of the way, so then I could go enjoy my eggs and stuff. So I found this video and it just blew my mind. It's an amazing video. He talks about fiber and just kind of debunks it just so well. He's a really great doctor. And it would just start me on this carnivore rabbit hole. And I found Dr. Anthony Chaffee's podcast, and it all just made so much sense to me about the plants, about plant toxins, about them just not being essential, and they're not what we thought they were. And I was happy to try. I was like, oh, this sounds good to me. More eggs, more beef. That's what my body was craving anyway. So I committed to a month, and now here I am a year later. I'm still doing it. And now I'm talking about it on Instagram. So that's a long story, but that's how I got here.
No, super, super interesting. And again, like your rise from starting an Instagram account, going to I think you're at 21.3
nearly 22 followers. Yeah,
nearly 23. Yeah, nearly 22, which I'm confident it will keep growing because you're constant with your content, which is great. I don't think you're overly aggressive with kind of what some people can be. And you do songs, which I think is new to the Carnivore.
Yeah. The thing is with Carnivore, I feel like there's a lot. It's not very popular, but there are people out there talking about it, and they're doing a really good job. And the message is there. You can find the information you want. The information's out there, but I think the way that I see it is just how we get it out there, make it more interesting, make it engaging. So I do try and just change it up. I have a lot of videos of me juggling fruit and eggs, and I've changed the lyrics to famous songs. It's just another way to just raise attention around the subject. No, and it seems to work.
That was a great song. That probably should put a YouTube account and do that.
I'm looking to do that. Yeah.
It's so just to unpack that a little bit. Obviously, as a young woman, you kind of found yourself confused about food, but seemingly doing the right things of what the guidelines would tell you to do. Again, like having oatmeal and an apple for breakfast, which if you was to measure it on a blood glucose thing, you kind of see your blood sugar skyrocket and then drop pretty fast. And then that's why you felt hungry again, and that's why you felt probably cranky and agitated.
Mm-hmm.
And also, just again, like you said, that's supposed to be a great breakfast, a great way to start the day. But I'm the same in terms of, if I start my day with oatmeal and an apple, I know for a fact in an hour, 2 hours, I'm going to be hungry again.
Hungry and asleep. It's just
So
no
how
way
many
to live.
meals is like the individual supposed to facilitate in at that point? If you're hungry every 1 to 2 hours, are you eating like a
Mhm.
bodybuilder? I just don't. And again, like, I'm someone who came from back in my, let's say, bro days in my early 20s, when I was kind of eating that, like, high protein, but definitely egg whites over egg yolks all the
Mhm.
time. Disgusting, but like, not touching the egg yolks because cholesterol and fat,
Mhm.
and kind of high carb, lower fat diet, and you feel like trash, but you're
Yep.
doing what the guidelines say. And for people that don't, again, maybe for older people that don't have a social media account, and again, I know we spoke about social media and the drawbacks from it being addictive, but the benefit of it is you get to find people like Dr. Berg and Paul Mason and Anthony Chafee and Paul Sardino at one point.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. You know, like, it's really interesting that he's gone in another direction. It just, you know, we're all just trying to find out what the truth is,
Yeah,
really. I hope that's the goal anyway. So for other people to try things and you go that way, I'll go this way, like, fine. And then we can all hopefully then come together and decide, like, well, that worked, that didn't work, and just find out what will work. I mean, if we try to seek the truth, then hopefully we'll
yeah.
find it.
I don't think anyone other than angry vegans, which I'm sure you probably get a lot of, but
Oh, yeah.
I don't think anyone in the carnivore space or low carb or keto is saying this is how I eat, so everyone universally should eat this way. I don't think anyone's saying that.
Maybe Bart K, Lord Bart K.
Lord, well, I mean,
You know
yeah,
Bart K?
I do. He's Australian, right?
I think
Or
he's
Is British in Australia?
oh, I actually don't. I don't actually know.
I think he's
He's
Australian.
hilarious though. I mean, he plays characters.
Yeah,
His character is forceful, but maybe with good reason because he's a very, very intelligent man.
yeah, I do know him, and
He's hilarious.
I do.
I love him.
I just wish some, because he's, like you said, he's very smart, very educated, but sometimes, because I think he's just so sick of the bullshit that people have
Hmm.
been fed, you can kind
Hmm.
of hear that aggression.
Oh yeah, but it's. I think it's. I mean, it's a character as well, but
Yeah.
I think it's great. It's great to see someone like just straight talking. Here it is. Have it
yeah,
as it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Cutting
It's
through because there's so much misinformation, so
100%,
much.
100%. And I spend evenings reading studies and for whatever they're worth, because again, you can do a study on red meat and find it's the worst thing in the world,
Yeah,
and
you can find a study to back up anything you want.
anything. But I follow both sides. I follow like the more animal based primal sides, and I also
Mhm.
follow like I did a 6 month vegan stint in like
Oh,
2020.
really? How did you feel?
I think with any new diet, you get the honeymoon phase,
Mhm.
and you are hyper aware of any changes.
Mhm.
And I felt good at first.
What were you
My,
coming from? Were you coming from like a
like a broy, if it fits your macros
okay,
kind of diet.
yeah.
And it was, you know what it was? I did it purely for ethical reasons. I
Mhm.
kind of looked at where, this is when I lived in Canada at the time, but I kind of looked at where our meat was coming from. And I'm still a big advocate for that, kind of trying to, I know people are limited in terms of budget.
Mhm.
And I spoke about it on your comments the
Yeah,
other day.
we
But
can talk about that.
yeah, I still think that should be, whether carnivore, vegan, in between, that should be in the forefront, understanding where the food where your food comes from, whether that be meat or vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's an impact to where that comes from. But I watched a lot of documentaries and was like, okay,
Vegan ones.
yeah, very naive.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, the answer is then don't eat meat. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's now obviously I know about like crop deaths, and there's no kind of
That blew my mind. That
yeah,
part
there's
behind the
no
whole.
free food unless you're growing it yourself.
No, not at all. Yeah.
And so I did it for 6 months. Strangely enough, so I've had like chronic eczema all my life, but it cleared up for whatever reason. I'm not sure why, but it probably was the best it's ever been.
Oh wow, interesting.
But
Were you eating seed oils as a vegan?
occasionally, because I got sucked into as long as it's vegan.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The stick a vegan label on anything, people will buy it. It's
And
quite scary.
I wasn't educated on the seed oils as much
Yeah.
then. So I'd have the occasional Beyond Burger or whatever. And you know what? Fries are vegan. Oreos are vegan.
Oreos are vegan. Yeah, the classic. Doritos are vegan.
But for the most part, it was whole food, plant-based. Because what I was, again, coming from someone who worked out a lot, I knew a little bit about nutrition in terms of what I thought was right. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to maintain muscle. I'm not going to become deficient in iron, zinc, minerals that
Were you
people.
supplementing a lot then?
I try. So I do you know the app Chronometer?
Nah.
So do you know MyFitnessPal?
I've heard of it, yeah.
So it's kind of MyFitnessPal is like tracking macros, tracking calories, which I think long term probably a terrible idea because I think it's obsessive behavior.
Yeah.
But Chronometer is like that on steroids. It's
Oh dear.
so it will give you your calories, macros, whatever, but it'll give you your thiamine, your riboflavin, your niacin, selenium, potassium, magnesium, manganese, everything. So everything you're eating. And I thought, okay, I know as a vegan you have to be, and I know vegans would push back on this, but I think you have to be more careful in terms of how are you going to meet your daily needs, because you have to add a lot of plants in to make what seemingly, again, like a steak would cover you for your zinc for the day, for your, you know what I mean, for your riboflavin, for your nice, all these things, easy with one ribeye steak, you're good.
And this is why carnivore is so amazing, and why to me it makes so much sense, because we haven't evolved with a macro tracker on our hand.
Yeah.
You know, we should be able to eat the natural foods that are going to give us what we need without having to overthink it.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's like a huge asset why I think carnivore, and definitely eating meat, but carnivore is so amazing because it takes that out of the equation. You don't have to think about your food like that, which you shouldn't. It's not natural. When I feel like when you're trying to figure out what's good for you, we need to really think about how we used to do it. How are we designed? If we were meant to be, you know, we weren't evolved to have a calorie counter right here on our palm. So why are we doing that? And we need to try and find the ways of life that don't require that, because more than likely that's probably in the right direction.
100%. Like the more you obviously mindful about your diet, but the less you have to
actually think
over
about
manage it.
Yeah, I talk a lot about intuitive eating because I think that really should be, for me, it's the goal. And I think for a lot of people, it could be one of the most freeing experiences of their life. So many people, I'm sure you've had it from like being in your gym bro diets, you know, it's like, and then a lot of people with eating disorders happen to be a lot more women. They're just so conditioned to think about everything, to track everything, to worry about everything, to plan everything, to micromanage everything. And it's exhausting, and it's not natural at all. And it's really bad for the quality of your life and your mental health and your thoughts. And something I talk about with carnivore is like, if you want, why carnivore is so amazing for me is you can let all of that go, and you can let your body decide what you want, because the food is so satiating. It's so nutritious that you have no decisions to make. If you eat nutritious food, your body will tell you how much you want. It will tell you when to eat, and it will tell you when to stop. And that's amazing, because we're so far from that in our carbohydrate, ultra processed food diets, because they're addictive. They're very nutritionally poor, so we don't get that satisfaction. Even if you're eating vegetables, like I've eaten loads and loads of vegetables in the past, and you do not reach that satisfaction point. Maybe you feel physically full, your stomach is full, but your brain is like, nah, I'm still looking for this nutrition and this nutrient, and I need this. So, don't stop eating, but you have to stop eating, and you feel so imbalanced, and that's a really horrible feeling. And I think it can lead to some very disordered patterns of eating and just life dissatisfaction, to be honest, because you're hungry, but you're
100%.
full, but you're
Yeah.
hungry. And that's a horrible way to be. But carnivore just, it gets rid of that problem, because you're full.
I gained, I think I was the heaviest I ever was, a lot of weight on the vegan diet.
Oh, really? Interesting. Well, that
Which
makes
a lot of people are like, oh, I do it for what? Like, no, because I was still trying to maintain muscle, of which almost, no, actually not almost, all vegan protein sources or vegetarian protein sources are carbohydrates too.
Yeah, like lentils, pulses.
Yeah,
They're all
so
carbohydrates.
I was slamming those, but again, like, I know I said I would eat Beyond Burgers and stuff like that, and vegan donuts, which were just laden seed oils.
Sugary seed oil.
Yeah, which the most hyper palatable thing in the world. You're never going to get full on that. But
no, and you're not meant to. They're designed to be addictive. They're designed to be overeaten. They're not labeled like that. They'll label them as like a treat and have one or packet to share, but that's marketing.
Yeah,
they know you're going to eat loads, and then
100%.
go back and buy more, and 100%. It keeps you in a horrible cycle.
Yeah, and it's, I suppose, just to close off on my vegan journey, which I will never return to, but I tracked everything because I wanted to be the outlier. And when vegans come at me now, because they still do, I had one on my YouTube account the other day critiquing, I did a full day of eating, critiquing that I drank coffee on a vegan diet, and coffee was the reason why. So I did bloods like 5 months in, because I was getting chronic headaches. And I'm someone that never suffers with headaches in my life. I never get migraines, never have. But I was like, okay, something's not right, because I'm tracking everything. I can see my RDA of iron is like 300% for the day. I've got my zinc, I've got my copper, I've got everything covered. So I know I'm good, but something's not right in terms of chronic headaches. I was getting acne like on my forehead, which I'd never suffered with before ever.
Just inflammation.
Let me do a blood test. And I think my ferritin levels, which I think the range in Canada was supposed to be anywhere from 20 to 200, which is like your iron stores. Mine was 2.
Oh my gosh.
And this was me like slamming, like I'd have like 150 grams of oatmeal in the morning, iron rich, supposedly. Black beans, iron rich, spinach, but obviously now non-heme iron and heme iron is no way the same thing.
And I think this also highlights the topic of absorbency and nutrient absorbency. Like, yes, maybe within that plant that contains this level of a nutrient, but then you're eating it, and then are you actually absorbing it? Because you could have, like you did, according to your app, you reached all of your levels, but according to your body, that's just not the reality that happened. And that's like, with the plants, you have fiber, you have defense chemicals, you have all these things that prevent you from actually absorbing the nutrition. So then you think you're getting it, but you're actually not.
Yeah,
which
like
is the problem.
Phytic acid and stuff like
exactly.
that. Yeah, so that again, recently, I think it was like last week, someone commented on a video from like 5 years ago, and he was like, "Aren't you the guy that went on a vegan diet?" And then, because when I quit, because again, it's almost like a cult. I had so many friends who are vegan, but when I quit, the amount of messages I got was almost celebrity-esque, because it was just hate fueled. Like, you was never vegan, you was plant-based, you was never in it for the animals. I was like, look, I tried, but there's no way that I'm gonna do this diet if I have to just keep adding supplement after supplement after supplement in, because then any diet
it's not a human diet.
Any diet I do, if I have to do that, then I question the legitimacy of the diet. If I have to start adding in supplements, because that's not that's a clear
That's not a
sign to me.
sustainable diet. It's not a
No.
natural diet. If you have to supplement it, how? It just doesn't work. The logic isn't there. But surely there's something wrong with it.
The irony, I know kind of you've gone back and forth with coffee and thinking about it, but the irony of this guy reaching out to me saying coffee was the thing. He said, your coffee, they used to make it into like in a French press, like a cafetiere. He said, your coffee looked so thick you could put a spoon in it and it wouldn't move. That was inhibiting your iron. I was like, yeah, probably. But also the black beans, the oatmeal, the tofu, the tempeh, the whole grains.
The fiber,
like, you're making my point for me. You're saying that it was a coffee? Yeah, I agree. But everything else was inhibiting the iron. So like, you're not making a good argument. But then on like within like a week of incorporating, I remember I was with my wife, and she kind of just follows whatever in terms of like diet. She's like, okay, we're doing this. Okay, like it makes it easier as a household. Do this. Do you? I've never given up cheese, but do you? And I remember that the afternoon we was in the field walking our dogs, and there was this place in Toronto in Canada where it did like wild boar and wild elk and bison and all these amazing like free range meat. And I was like, you want to get a meat box tonight? And she was like, what? And we'd been vegan for like 6 months. She was like, are you fucking me, right? You kidding me? I was like, nah, let's get a meat box and let's cook some like wild.
She was like, oh, I thought you'd never ask.
And she's like, 1000% I do.
Yeah.
And honestly, within a week, headaches gone. I didn't test again, but I imagine my iron completely corrected itself. And just, but again, I don't know how people have done that for like 14, 15 years. You see people are like in it the long game.
Well, it's quite funny when I used to, before I moved back home when I was still studying, I lived with my best friend at the time who was a vegan, and I was a carnivore, and that was a funny situation. Our fridge, it was like, my shelf was just like beef mince and butter and cheese, and her shelf was just like moldy vegetables and like yucky like seed oil margarine spread. It was hilarious. We once shared a meal of a bowl of ice together because that was our only thing bonding us. It was so funny.
Hey, that could be a YouTube channel itself. The vegan and the carnivore.
And I love that girl, but yeah, we just had such different diets, and it was just hilarious. But she watched a vegan documentary, when she was maybe 13 or 12, and it was vegan propaganda. It was, playing on your emotions, making you believe that the key to your health and the key to the saving the environment was to avoid meat. And they're very convincing. I watched them. I was vegetarian for years as a teenager, for the same reason. Like I was convinced that, oh my gosh, this is wrong, and I was convinced that I could live without meat. I didn't think it was. They'll tell you that, oh no, you can just eat tofu instead. You don't need these meats, but you do. You do need meat. I do think that. But they convince you otherwise. And that was her. She convinced at the age of 12, maybe, went through her whole teenage years, early 20s. And then it wasn't till like this time last year, her body was fighting back. She was getting really severe eczema, allergies, all of these symptoms, fatigue, brain fog. And I was learning about carnivore at this time. So it was very interesting to kind of observe her experience and like seeing her symptoms. I'm like, oh, wow, like this girl needs to really drop some plants, like, and she needs some meat. It wasn't really my place to tell her that, but obviously like she was living with me and she was seeing what I was doing. So I think she was, by just seeing it, I think it was making her realize like, well, maybe like her nutrition needs to change, because she was getting all these reactions. So then she would cut out gluten, and then she cut out soy, and then she cut out nuts. So she was a vegan that couldn't eat gluten, couldn't eat soy, couldn't eat nut. Like, what are you going to eat? Like,
Yep.
she couldn't. It was absolutely unsustainable diet that was not going to help a human body grow and thrive and feel good. So she eventually started adding back. She added back butter and some cheese and eggs slowly. I don't know. I don't think she's still eating meat, but she's eating those things, which is brilliant. And I'm really happy that she's doing that. But it was just so interesting to watch how much she tried to stay vegan, and like she was feeling awful, and she still like she kept trying. But it's slightly alarming.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoke to friends and kind of explained like how plants are obviously they're alchemists. I think in the future we're going to find out they're a lot more sentient than we actually believe. And again, they're rooted in the ground. They don't want to be eaten, so they have defense chemicals. They can't run away. But they like I said, they're alchemists. They produce chemicals that will hopefully deter predators from eating them.
Exactly.
And the last thing that they want, and this is why they find the most defense chemicals in the seeds and the nuts, is for their offspring to be eaten, because like anything on this planet, it wants their lineage to survive.
Yeah. And the fact that is on this planet at the moment means it's done a very good job of doing that.
Yeah. So like if you eat like 3 raw kidney beans, you're probably going to
there was that
hospital.
case, that boy, he ate 5 a while, like years ago, but he ate 5 and he was hospitalized, raw kidney beans.
Yeah. And I think a lot, I've questioned this as well, and this kind of wasn't designed to be a vegan bashing podcast at all, but I think just in terms of
because it's just understanding
yeah,
the facts of it.
I think just in terms of food, like I'm always saying to people, if your diet again has to have, I don't know, 50 different things just to be completed. Also, like when I speak to my grandma, she's like 85, but she used to get an orange for Christmas. But the rest of her diet was, it had carbs, it had bread, it had stuff like that, but it was primarily like beef dripping, animal fat, lard, like because she was eating what was available to her in her environment. And I think there's something to that in terms of eating for the place that you live. It makes zero sense for me. And again, I'm a hypocrite because I drink coffee and eat dark chocolate, which definitely doesn't grow in the UK. But there's something to being like, okay, I'm in Scotland. Does a acai bowl make sense?
Exactly. Even avocados as well. I think that's quite an interesting one.
I'm not sure if you've gone down that rabbit hole of like light exposure and.
Oh yeah, I have, but I find light exposure really hard
it's difficult
to manage, and it just kind of freaks me out. So I try. It's like I'm staying ignorant for my own sanity, but I know it's bad.
It's kind of like, I mean, like in terms of light exposure, in terms of things grow in certain places in the world.
Oh, right, in terms of that.
For a certain reason. And I strongly believe that food is signaling. And if you're eating fruit, let's say year round, this is why I've commented a few times on Saldino stuff. And as much as I appreciate him, because I think he's nuanced and I think he's willing to change and adapt whatever works for him, I've always said animal-based, cool, if you want to have meat and fat, but include fruit. But eating me in Yorkshire, eating papaya and mango and pineapple, trying to mimic what Paul Sardino is doing in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I strongly think that the UV light and the spectrum that you're getting, his body is probably expecting some sort of fruit because it is in.
Yeah, interesting. I've never thought of that before.
You know what I mean? Like,
and
you get these people who sit in England, sit in office environments, and you find, I just can't lose weight, and they're eating tropical fruit at their desk in December.
Their body's just like, what's going on?
Yeah, and I did read something from, I can't remember what it was, and I need to find the individual, but it was a guy who speculated that humans do hibernate
during the winter.
So not in the sense of like we will sleep like bears, not like that, but in the sense of they would obviously in the winter you have in England very little plant matter available if you're going to live out in the wild, like maybe
Even in the summer too. When I
a
think
few
about
berries. Yeah,
what if I wasn't eating meat, let's say, and if we were to be a vegan species, I just look around. I'm like, okay, so I'm in the UK, I live in Scotland. What would I eat? And I haven't seen anything I would be able to eat in months. Months. And
I'm
even
always
in
kind of
summer,
like,
it's berries, and that's it. I'm like, well, that's not going to sustain a human.
and how picky would you have to be about what is poisonous and not?
Yeah, I mean, your risk of dying is pretty high if you're only trying to forage plants. But like you would have to hunt animals. You wouldn't have another choice.
Yeah, it's but this guy hypothesized that when again food is signaling, and when you're eating fruit or carbohydrate, you're kind of saying to your body there is an abundance around.
Mm-hmm.
And that would come in summer in some environments. Every animal in summer, their goal should be to get fat or get
Mm-hmm.
fatter for the
For
winter,
winter,
because
yeah.
winter's coming and there'll be less food and effectively almost a famine, and you need to survive off your own body fat. But humans, because we've got so good at having all food available at all times of the year, he said that we're almost living in a state of constant summer.
Pretty much.
So your body is like store, because our bodies are still very primal in the
Primal.
sense, yeah. And they're like, winter has to come at some point. It doesn't understand that I have a fridge downstairs or I have
Tesco's down the street.
Tesco's down the
Yeah.
street. It doesn't understand that, but it's like, okay, winter has to come at some point. And you got individuals who are again struggling to lose weight, struggling with other symptoms, but they're doing the right things of getting their 5 a day.
Mm-hmm.
But your 5 a day doesn't exist 12 months a year.
Nope.
And again,
And
even
that's
stuff
why, yeah, and that's why I really advocate for like a meat first diet. I mean, carnivore or animal based is still better than ultra processed food. But people, I feel like what am I trying to say is like when people worry so much about like, are they gonna like the strictness of carnivore, like you and like how I see it is like when we were primal, we were most likely eating meat majority of the year. And then, like you say, one season will come and you can gorge in sugar because that's why it was there. You were designed to do that because it was there. But you can kind of see that in your natural life. If you just plan you just plan for your meals to be meat-based, fatty, protein meals, and then you're going to stumble across your own fruit trees as you just go through life. But you don't need to plan for them. Like your birthday's going to come, or an event's going to come, or a celebration's going to come. And fine, you don't have to be like, well, I can never do this ever again because I'm now a carnivore, whatever. Like we would have stumbled upon honey hives. We would have stumbled upon fruit trees and we would have eaten them. And your life is going to bring you your own hives and your own fruit trees like the same way. And you can still enjoy that. I feel like some people go into these sort of things with this like really like severe strictness and like worry that, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to do this, I'll never be able to do that again. And I don't think that that's the case. You don't have to do it again. You can live without those things, but it's okay, I suppose, is like the message. Like it's fine.
Yeah, and again, that's kind of where like you've got to separate a community, and if you have found a community online, great, but it shouldn't be a cult. It shouldn't be like,
Yeah.
for example, I think you said a few posts back about you had, was it toffee cake or something at Christmas?
Yeah.
Which, again, I'm not sure if you got pushback from that, because again,
Not at all.
but
Not
if you
one
was
comment.
vegan and you was like, I had a steak at Christmas, you
Yeah,
would
they'd be like, you're not a vegan.
yeah. But like your point you was making was didn't kill you, but also kind of like you probably had the blood sugar spike and then you was fine.
Yeah.
And you was kind of saying like, am I still living on that blood sugar from Christmas? Like,
Yeah,
is that
which
what
obviously you're
if we
not.
need,
I'm
yeah,
not
if we,
living right now because I ate a cake 3 months ago.
yeah, it's but again, if that's something somebody wants to do, like
Hmm.
have your basis and have your morals about kind of what you know makes you feel best. So
Yeah,
if again, if there's ice cream around and you're like, you know what, I'm at a birthday party or whatever, I want to have a scoop of ice cream.
if it's
You
on
probably,
an occasion.
yeah, and you'll probably be like, you know what, that, because it's a kind of the classic thing of you can have like a real nice like fatty ribeye or slow cooked meat and you'll be great. Like I feel perfect, satisfied, no bloating, cool. But if you incorporate a little bit of dessert into that,
Hmm.
you could almost go back to the meat again. It's like
Hmm.
reset.
Yeah, your appetite is crazy what it does. But I think what's important is that we just need to know what is good and what's optimal, and then it's up to you if you stick to that or not. And I don't care. Like you do what you want, I'll do what I want. Even if like I drink coffee at the moment, I know it's not optimal. I know we don't need it, and I know if I could get through that proper withdrawal and overcome it, I'd be fine without it. But I still just choose to drink it because I want to, and that's fine. But I'm not. I know it's not optimal, but that's fine. But you need to know what optimal is to then choose to not do that or not, and that's up to you. But I feel like with where we at right now is that no one really realizes what we're meant to be eating.
Mm.
So that's where the confusion's all coming in and why people are so lost, because if you don't even know what to aim for, how are you going to find it?
Yeah, like what's the
And
base? If you look at every other animal, there's no confusion about what a dog eats. Or
yeah,
if I see even birds or deers out, like there's no confusion about what they eat. Like straight from birth, like a baby deer is gonna go, a fawn's gonna go and be eating grass straight away because it
yeah,
knows its base level of this is my food.
yeah. And it doesn't, and like in the terms of carnivore, like just because you know that's optimal doesn't mean you have to do it. Like there's no police, there's no like you, whatever you decide to eat is up to you. But to really just make that informed decision, you need to know what's good. And then from that, do whatever you want.
Yeah, the coffee thing is interesting. Like that's all I've had this morning. I've had a black coffee, and
Same.
I again, I know if I had food this morning, I would be thinking about food now.
Even if it was like just fat and protein.
No. If I
Right.
was to have like again, let's go to our example of oatmeal. If I
Oh,
was to
okay.
have
Yeah.
if I was to have eggs this morning with my coffee, it'd have been fine.
Hmm.
But and even like the other day, I know you put. I think you said about you was doing like the steak and butter girl protocol,
Yeah. I've
whatever,
been doing the
and you've kind of
priming.
felt like you kind of hit your level of full satiety. I'm kind of someone that can eat a lot, which definitely if you kind of like focus on fat and protein, you can halt that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm probably like I wouldn't even say I wouldn't want to put a label to it, but predominant my diet is mostly fatty meat with plants, like in terms of some fruit, um, vegetables,
So like animal
avocado.
based, ketovore.
Yeah. I you know what? I feel better on a low carb diet,
Yeah.
1000%. Tapping into my body fat and being able to, like you said, even just from a mental stress, just being able to go hours being like, oh, I haven't eaten, but I'm also not
Mm.
hungry, but I could eat.
The
But
practicality behind it is amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Really good.
But coffee, I feel like I know you said it's like not optimal, but I feel like with because like your diet right now is predominantly just from looking at your pages, we've got eggs, we've got ground beef, we've got butter, sardines,
And coffee. That's pretty much it.
lamb chops occasionally.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love lamb chops, but they're expensive.
Um, but that's kind of the
That's
basis,
that's
right?
it pretty much. Like every meal is pretty much beef mince and eggs and butter. Sometimes I get random cravings for sardines, so I'll just eat them when I crave them. And then chicken wings sometimes too. But it's really pretty much beef, butter, eggs, and
See,
coffee.
I don't, I think the coffee probably, and this is just me thinking, but I think it could probably help you out, because like anything, like optimal diet, perfect, or like human species appropriate diet, cool. But in terms of like just having like a little hormetic stressor with the caffeine, I think it'll probably do you justice in terms of just your body's like, okay, not optimal, and maybe it puts a little bit of stress on my adrenal glands and whatever. But I think just having that, because any kind of stressor like that, even like gluten to a degree is a stressor, but you're going to have a lot more drawbacks. But like working out or sauna is stressors. But I think
people do talk about like spiking their cortisol in the morning is a good thing, and coffee can do that, and like cold showers can do that, and obviously exercise.
Yeah,
I don't really know if that's true or not.
but again, like there has to be
Depends
a
who you
level of
listen
like
to.
black coffee. Like I enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, if you're going for an optimal diet or for an optimal lifestyle, then for me, that involves coffee. It's optimal for me to sit down with my family and enjoy a coffee. It's optimal to go to a coffee shop and meet my friend and have a really nice time. Like that is optimal for me.
That's being a human too. That's like community. Yeah.
And I don't like. I'm not gonna. That's fine. I experimented about coffee because I think it's really good to do that, and know how addicted you are or not addicted. I think I found it easier than I was expecting, but the fatigue, oh my gosh, since drinking coffee again and going back to that like little caffeine buzz, I didn't even realize how severe the fatigue was. There were a couple of days where I was just like lying on the floor, couldn't do anything. Like I was so empty. It felt so tired. And I was like,
you used to have one a day or
one a day. That was one a day for a while before that. And then none for a month.
Okay.
And I couldn't believe the fatigue. But
so I love it. And again, like I buy like quality beans, and we have like a half decent coffee machine. And like I love the full just coming down in the morning and preparing. I love that this full procedure of it. And
yeah, it's just really nice.
It's a great way to start the day. And like you said, you just sit there and kind of sit at your coffee table and just chill.
And the conversation, like the coffee chats, it's really good. And whatever. I feel like it's not, if that's like the last plant in your diet or last like thing in your diet that isn't optimal, then I feel like you're doing a pretty good job.
And kind of what I was like saying with if I had food with it, I don't do it all the time. Sometimes I do have food, but I just enjoy coffee on a fasted. So I don't know why. It tastes better. It feels. I just enjoy having it first thing in the morning by itself.
Yeah, and it's so habitual as well. I suppose like that's got a bit of addiction to it because I'm the same. But
I wish my tolerance was better because I can have one, maybe if I had my first one at like 8 a.m. this morning, and I'd have to probably wait until like 1 to have another. Otherwise, I will.
I wouldn't have one past. I only have one.
Yeah.
Because I think for my sleep, I wake up and have the coffee as far away from when I'm going to then go to sleep.
Right.
So I'd only have one in the morning.
But yeah, I'm probably addicted.
Oh yeah, we all are.
And then like today, like I'll probably I suppose break my fast with. I've got some peanut butter M&Ms, which I have those.
Are you joking? It's like my jaw is like what?
So that's my prop for the day. I have a friend who is a close friend, but he still very much enjoys his junk food, and I don't like being the facilitator, but I can get stuff from Canada from friends and family that we don't get
really?
here.
So you buy him junk food?
Yeah,
I've been thinking about that like
it's a bit like
recently.
a dealer, but
yeah, it's so interesting how we give people ultra processed foods as gifts.
Yeah,
like it really made me think when you see, especially around like seasons, or like when obviously it was just Valentine's Day a month ago, and the amount of ultra processed food and chocolate and all this stuff that's advertised, for someone that you love. And I just can't, if I love someone, not that you don't love your friend, but it's just like interesting to think, if I love someone, I don't want to give them these foods.
No, it's wild. But
I don't want them to have that. I don't want to put their body through that.
And you know what?
But it's weird how like caught up in emotion the whole food industry is.
When I first got to Canada, like I was still, because when I went to Canada, I was, as a kid growing up in England, I watched like American TV shows and everything else, and I saw them eating like Fruit Loops and Lucky Charms, and I was like, oh my god, that'd be so cool.
Yeah, I
To
had
like
that
live
too.
like an American kid, like oh my god.
Pop
So, like,
Tarts.
yeah, so I had to get that out of my. I had to get. I went on like a almost American/Canadian binge. Like I remember the first vacation I took to the States, to Orlando, and I went to a big ass Walmart there, and like the cereal aisle of like Captain Crunch, like Captain Crunch donuts, Captain Crunch peanut butter, like just
Yeah.
like
I went to Canada, I had a similar thing with all the
oh
Oreos as well. And they had like a million
yeah.
flavors of Oreos, and my little mind was blown.
I bought a duffel bag. I went to like a designer outlet and got a Converse duffel bag to bring stuff like full of like at the TSA like security. They were like, "What's in the bag?" I was like, literally garbage. Like there was like, okay, let me see. I was like, "You just got cereal and candy." I was like, "Yeah, like just garbage." But now I couldn't even imagine consume. But again, my friend, he will either order himself or so. I'm like, when I visit Canada, I go and visit my wife's parents. I'm like, okay, I'll bring you some stuff, man. He knows kind of, I educate him on the stuff that I believe and the stuff that I think, and
Well,
he
follow through. Maybe stop buying him that, you know?
yeah,
You don't.
yeah. But
It's like
it's
it's a hard one, but
yeah, it's kind of one of those, and like this is another Canadian
what's
food.
that?
So it's called an RX bar. So it breaks down kind of. It's supposed to be like a simple protein bar. So egg whites, almonds, 4 cashews, 2 dates. That's it.
And no carbs, no fat.
Well,
Oh, well,
carbs
the states, so
from
yeah.
the dates, and the fat from the nuts, but that's
Right.
it. It's like 12 grams of protein. So it's like your minimalist protein bar. But again, like I don't really mess with much stuff that comes in packaging in terms of stuff like that. But it's not the worst thing in the
Yeah,
world.
there's degrees of like processed foods and which ones are bad and worse, but
So if there's like one food, I suppose that you was going to incorporate back into your diet, what would it be?
or just mind your mic, you're covering it with your hand.
Oh, what would it
There
be?
you go. What would it be? If I was to put back into my diet?
Just any food that you're like, you know what, like maybe I'm going to have a handful of blueberries, or maybe I really enjoy almond butter.
Oh, that's quite a good question. You know what? I think it'd be cucumbers.
Okay.
I really like the one thing with carnivore, sometimes there's not crunch, that texture, unless you can well, to figure that out, I made, when I wanted crunch, I used to make homemade like pork scratching or
Yeah.
pork crackling.
Yeah.
And that was really good if you're craving that crunch, because the food is quite soft and chewy, not crunchy. That sorts you right out. It's very crunchy. But probably cucumber. I just really like cucumbers.
Okay.
There's not much in them. It would just be a texture thing and the taste.
Yeah, it's basically water, right?
If
So
it's just water and lectins in the skin. No.
yeah, so I
But
mean,
apparently it's a fruit. According to Paul Saladino, it's a fruit.
yeah, anything like that bears seeds is
Yeah,
technically a fruit,
it's a
right?
fruit. So I suppose it would be cucumber. Yeah.
Okay.
What would you? Well, I guess you have a more varied diet anyway, I suppose.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing that I suppose I'd try if I was gonna go like full carnivore, which I've never done it, but I'd always be
Yeah, have you
interested in
done
terms
it?
of like, no, I've never done it. I've never gone that. I've been very close, but I've never done it in terms of like let's see what it does for my skin health, which
Yeah,
I imagine it'd be great.
you should try it. Commit to 30 days or something. And we experiment, because I mean, you're going to be like nearly all the way there anyway.
Yeah, yeah. It's I need to have variety though in my meat. I wouldn't be able to just do like red. I'd need like
Oh yeah, definitely do variety. Don't I
like
wouldn't.
pork belly. I love.
Yeah, absolutely. If to anyone who wants to start carnivore, one of my tips would to embrace all of the food options, 100%. You don't want to just pick out one or two and be like, I'm going to be only eating this and strict carnivore, like going straight into a lion diet, which is just red meat. I wouldn't recommend that, because I think you're just making it hard for yourself. And maybe down the line you can start experimenting more if you stick with it. But that initial start, absolutely eat any of them that you want.
I feel like avocado is like the gateway food. Like if you see like someone who's like strict carnivore and you say like avocado creeping on
Yeah.
their wooden board. That's like
Yeah,
the
it's quite
gateway.
funny, or mashed into their eggs or something.
Yeah, I feel
It's
that's the
not bad.
gateway
Like,
for people.
yeah,
Like,
I
I'm
mean,
gonna start incorporating some different stuff.
when I was naturally like progressing to carnivore for a while, it was like meats and then avocado and a few nuts. Nuts and avocados were like my bridging foods.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I do love like an almond butter or something like that, but I suppose the nuts and seeds are the worst thing for like eczema.
Oh, really? They're very
Yeah,
inflammatory, like
they're
the
high in,
omega-6.
well, the omega-6, but they're high in nickel
Oh,
too.
right.
Like the metal, like even stuff like oatmeal is pretty high in nickel, and I suppose it's just not
And
great
that's
for
not good for eczema.
any kind of skin. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know
supposedly.
that.
So like a whole Facebook group that I'm a part of, and their diet is just a low nickel diet, but
Mm-hmm.
basically most of the nickel foods are oatmeal, lentils, nuts, seeds.
Mm.
It's just
And oxalates in nuts too. Oxalates are a defense chemical that
so
people
yeah,
they're the number one cause of kidney stones. They're pretty bad. And I used to consume so many almonds on my porridge. And just throughout the day, like nuts would be my snack. And nuts, especially almonds, are very high in these things.
yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of macadamia, which kind of like on a defense
Are they
chemical
lower?
level, they don't really have like much phytic acid. They're basically just like monounsaturated fat with some saturated fat. They're very low in like PUFA in omega-6.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any oxalates, minimal. So like macadamia is like,
If you're going to go for a nut, that's a good one.
yeah, it's a pretty free, like and kind of satiating too. Like I'd probably say if I was going to
The
be,
nice texture as well.
yeah, if I was going to be like carnivore and be like, I'm going to have one food that I'm going to be like, that's my one food I'm going to keep in. Probably dark chocolate, to be fair. I'm a bit, and again, like one of the highest things in oxalate, but like I'm a big like 90%, 95% dark
Yeah, I
chocolate
was
guy.
too. In my keto days, I like dark chocolate.
Like almost too much. Like I could do a full bar pretty easy.
Yeah.
That
The thing is, with what I find amazing about carnivore, though, is the level of satiation and satisfaction that you'll get from it. So if you've not experienced that before, I think it could be quite hard to think, oh my gosh, but how am I going to avoid eating that? And how am I going to like not ever eat that, or, you know, like stick to it? But once you start experiencing it for yourself, you realize you're just so satisfied. And maybe you get those thoughts of, oh, like, oh, that would be nice if I could have some dark chocolate right now, or if you're, you know, or sugar or anything. But you can just kind of control that so much better because physically you are so full. You're
yeah,
so satisfied. And that thought is like, yeah, I could, but I also could just not. And then you can just move on. And I've never experienced that with any other way of eating. And even when I was like keto and whole foods keto and all that, it was nothing like this. So
really.
it's before you experience it, maybe it's hard to picture yourself being able to do it. But I would just say give it a shot because you may be surprised.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not as like hard as
I've done
you maybe
keto
think.
for long periods of time, and again,
With lots of
loved
vegetables.
quite a bit. Yeah,
Because the vegetables, like you just do not get the satisfaction.
I did get like compared to like standard eating, the satiety is a massive difference.
Oh, it's still great. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're saying in terms of like that way of eating on a keto diet compared to carnivores, next
Yeah.
level.
Like for example, for what happened to me when I was keto, I was still eating ultra processed foods and I had an issue with overconsumption and I had compulsions to eat them. I really struggled. And for a number of reasons, like one, because I had a history of restrictive eating, I was really hungry. I didn't even realize it. I was really hungry and malnourished, and it made me very vulnerable to foods that are designed to be addictive. You take a hungry person and then an addictive food, like that's a recipe for disaster. And I couldn't avoid them. And even if I could avoid not eating them, I couldn't avoid the thoughts around them. And it was a really horrible way to be. And even through my keto years, I still had that. And I kind of just thought, wow, is this just life? Do I just deal with this now? And then I found carnivore and tried that out. And nothing has been so effective at dampering and eradicating that desire to eat ultra processed foods because I'm so full and I'm so satisfied, and I have no desire at all. I don't have to exert any willpower. I don't think about them. I don't want them. If I see them on the table, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a pack of biscuits. Like, oh, look at that, and then I move on. Like it's crazy, and I never thought I'd managed to get to that point. And it's actually one of my favorite aspects of carnivore is just the freedom from ultra processed food, sugars, any cravings at all.
Do you? So you don't supplement? I'm guessing with anything.
No, but I have been experimenting with iodine recently.
Okay.
Because Dr. Ken Berry, carnivore doctor, and Dr. Elizabeth Bright, they both talk about iodine quite a lot. Usually we'd get it from the soil. We would have it from our food, but because the soil and the food that the animal's eating is much more depleted than it would have been, they recommend to supplement. It's very good for your thyroid. Your thyroid needs a degree of iodine every single day to produce the hormones.
Yeah.
So I've been trying it out, but the problem is sometimes I try out too many things at the same time, and it's hard to know what's doing what. I need to be a little more like slow, but I'm just sometimes not good at that.
Yeah, iodine's one of those. I mean, you can get it from like kelp and seaweed.
Yeah.
So I take an iodine supplement. I think I take it every other day.
What do you do? The Lugol's solution, I think it's called.
No, so I've seen that on Amazon, but it's just capsules. But it's a company called Viridian, and it's literally just organic kelp from like I think it's from Ireland or Scotland. But yeah, organic kelp powder, and it covers like your daily dose of iodine. Like you said, it's something that probably a lot of people are deficient in, because we used to get it naturally in the soil, and the animals would be exposed to that and get it through that. Yeah. One thing I do know that you do get amounts from is, depending what the chickens are fed, eggs can be a decent source, and also dairy, because and that's a byproduct, because when they're milking the cows and they're cleaning like the teats, they use an iodine wash.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it comes in that way.
So you actually can get a somewhat decent amount from iodine from that.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
I mean, you can never guarantee how much, solution. Yeah.
I need to do it because you can test. If you get the Lugol's solution, which is like a liquid iodine, if you pop a little bit like on your arm or something, and if your body absorbs it, that means that you could be deficient because your body's taking it all in through your skin.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't and it just kind of sits there, it means that you might not be. But I haven't actually done that test yet. I'm going to do that maybe today.
So just iodine, that's all? Just
iodine, yeah.
So I suppose a common pushback for anyone on a meat-based diet or fully meat diet would be like, where are you getting your vitamin C from?
Yeah.
That's what I suppose most people would be like, oh, what about vitamin? I don't know why vitamin C is always like the poster child of deficiencies, but it's.
I think it's from the story of the scurvy with the sailors, but that's really interesting because that story is not understood correctly. The sailors that got the scurvy were eating crackers. They were eating like very bland, dried up carbohydrates, pretty much. And the captains and the people of authority on the ship, they were eating meat, and they weren't getting the scurvy. So the scurvy was coming from the people that were eating crackers, which is really interesting. So the root to that concern is flawed in the first place. And then obviously there's not been a reported case that I'm aware of, other people are aware of a carnivore having scurvy. But then on top of that, if you do want more vitamin C, if you have concerns, liver has vitamin C in it. I'm pretty sure muscle meat has vitamin C, but low amounts, not the amount that meets the recommended daily intake. But then the vitamin C absorption is very different in someone that's not eating carbohydrate, because the vitamin C competes for the same GLUT4 receptor as glucose. So if you get rid of this glucose, there's far more availability of uptaking the vitamin C that you do have. So you need a lower amount to meet the absorption that you need. So
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
not a thing. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, I think
But
the
people
RD
love to push it because it's a point.
yeah, I think the RDA is like 90 milligrams a day, but I'm sure I've read that someone in a lower carb diet, because like you said, the more carbs you eat, the more vitamin C you require.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like 30 milligrams is the estimated thing that someone might need on a carb, a zero carb or low carb diet. That being said, like I think the richest source of vitamin C in animal food is like pancreas and like
Oh,
glandular.
really?
I know we've spoke about like organ meats before, but they're like crazy rich in vitamin C.
Yeah. So it does
Like
exist. When people say there's no vitamin C, like it is there.
yeah, and even stuff like manganese and stuff like that. Like if I was going to be on a full carnivore diet and I wanted to make sure I was getting adequate like manganese and stuff, I'd go oysters, like mussels, literally easy. They would
No,
cover you for your day.
oh, really?
Yeah, like oysters, mussels, like straight away, like you hitting your. And again, I don't want to look at everything as numbers and be like, oh, I need to do this because I've been down that route and
Yeah.
it's not
I
helpful
really
long
just
term.
think like eat meat till you're full and like you're most likely going to be okay.
Yeah.
I don't like to overcomplicate it too much.
See, I don't, but my brain does.
I mean,
Almost.
it's quite habitual. A lot of people are so conditioned to do that, like I was saying earlier. It's like unlearning a lot is really important.
Yeah.
I had to unlearn so much and realize like I had so many lies in my head, so many false beliefs, so many, and they were just holding me back. And yeah,
Have you had
overcoming that.
pushback from like the people you work like, again, like
I wouldn't say it's pushback, but it's like shock. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you actually do that.
yeah,
And then they're just like very intrigued, lots of questions, but not pushback, just curiosity, which is good. I mean, I'll speak to anyone. I like it speaking about it because I think it's so important.
yeah,
I think it could benefit so many people. They just don't even know it yet.
yeah. And I feel like it's strange I feel like women historically have been targeted in terms of eating
Small,
predominantly red meat. Like you think like for some reason, I think the 90s low fat fad kind of did this, where like you think of what a woman should be eating. It's not copious amounts of steak and red meat in the
no,
main. It's like chicken, salads. You know what I mean? Like
and like lean and small portions, and I'm like, no,
it's so strange how
no, that's not
like
right.
it's I don't know, but
And
again,
that's
like
just tied up in like distorted body image and ideas of how women should look like, and they should be very small and petite and all this and like low protein. I just don't think that's true. We're a
no,
human body. We need to eat fat and we need to eat protein and we need to eat enough. And that means we need to eat till we're full. So that there's no such thing
yeah,
as, a small portion because we just need to eat enough.
yeah, and again, it's that
Sorry, my
1990s.
laptop's on 1%. I've just realised. Give me 2 seconds.
No, that's fine. All right, we are charging. We're good. We're back.
We're charging.
Yeah, so I do speak to a lot of people who, and it's normally kind of like people in their 40s, 50s who in the 80s, 90s were a product of that low fat, eat as much sugar as you want as long as it's low fat,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like the brainwashing was real. It's made people, again, like I won't like say the name, but like I have someone who's very close to me, and I think they've lost all enjoyment of food
Mm-hmm.
because they've been told everything apart from Weetabix and salad is unhealthy. And they've just been like, I think mentally, they've been like, all right, I'm just checked out from food. Food is not, and most of the time they don't even eat.
Yeah, food becomes like a stress for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's really sad. I think also one of the worst things we did for is approaching food from the context of weight loss and just weight loss.
100%.
So many people just see food as like it's only good for weight loss. or weight gain. There's nothing else you can get from food, which is just so wrong. You know, whatever weight happens is a consequence of your food, but the point to eat is to gain energy, is to gain sustenance, is to fuel your life. And for health, and we've just totally lost that reason, which is so funny because any other animal knows that for sure, without any doubt ever. Yet here we are in these like crises of weight. You know, we're like such a weight-driven society now, and it's really sad. And I think it's caused so many problems.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast about seeing a lot of people with type 2 diabetes. And again, I have people who are close to me who do have type 2 diabetes. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not medically trained, but I know that type 2 diabetes is fully reversible. I know that. It's not, but these individuals walk around like they have type 1. Like they act like there's nothing they can do to.
Yeah, they're told that they really don't realize.
Yeah,
they don't think it is. I was taught that it's a chronic disease in uni.
Yeah,
I was the conversation is, oh, once you have it, you just have to manage it, and this is you for your life. Which is so sad to tell people because like, it's a really hard disease to manage. Everything you do affects your blood sugar. Like even if you're doing exercise, if you're not sleeping, all these things, obviously then eating carbohydrate, but it's constantly in your mind if you know you have to deal with your blood sugar. So it's a really hard thing to have, and then to be told that it's chronic and that's you for life is like, it's so wrong. Because it's not, and you can change it if you want to, but the problem is people don't even realize they can. Like that, and that's what comes back to why I made my Instagram, is to just, you don't have to actually do it, but you need to know that this is an option. What you do with the information is absolutely up to you, and I don't care, nothing to do with me, it's your life. That's why I'm not pushy either, because I really I don't want people to feel like they have to do anything. I want people to do things because they want to do them, and that's nothing to do with me. But they need to know the truth, and they need to know the options they have, because no one else seems to be saying it that much, especially in the UK, where it seems to be extremely behind with like low carb in the medical scene. There's a really good GP, I don't know if you've heard of him, Dr. David Unwin, who runs a practice where he's cured and reversed, I don't know the word would be cured, but reversed many cases of diabetes in his patients. So he's published some research on it. He's really, really great, really interesting. But there's a handful of them. There's really not that many. A lot of the big low carb speakers are coming out of America and out of Australia. I don't know why we're so behind. Because
I don't know if it's a culture thing. The thing that I struggled with coming, so I was in Canada for 5 years, and when I moved back here, it's not with everyone. It's maybe a bit different down south in London, but it's kind of like that old school way. And if things have been this way for however long, then you don't question it. You just get on with it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. The diet pyramid as it is, and the government wouldn't have it wrong because they would never do anything to.
Yeah, why would the government want to harm us?
Exactly, they have our best
How
interest
could they
all the
be?
time. Yeah. Which, I mean, you can go down many rabbit holes.
That's
with that.
another rabbit hole, I think.
Which it's kind of weird how, like, once you start understanding the food landscape
and the food pyramid, I just made a video about the history of the food pyramid, because I think that's a really pivotal thing to understand, to open your mind to carnivore and an alternative to what you think you know. Once you realize where the information has come from in the first place and that it's very flawed, you can't help but then question it. And you have to question it, because
it's easier for the, let's say, the individual who doesn't really care about food, or it's easier to be like, okay, well, the government's figured this one out for me. I don't need to.
Yeah, they can
you know what I mean?
complacent and just blindly trust.
But again, this friend that I have who probably eats not a semi-poor diet is kind of says to me like, look, I couldn't be the way that you are in terms of like investigating food or trialing different ways of eating or understanding the mechanisms of different foods and how they make it. He's like, I just eat to eat and that's it. And in a way, that's kind of their way of being like, I don't want to stress about it.
Yeah.
But on the back of that, you don't have to stress. You're choosing the poor food, but you can also eat the optimal food and not stress as well.
Yeah, it's like you know what's really stressful is becoming ill.
Yeah.
Like that I think I'm very lucky to have seen ill health at such a young age, and it really solidified in myself the importance of looking after yourself.
Yeah.
I was always like that anyway. I think I just wanted to feel good. I've known what it feels like to feel bad, and it's no life I want. So I guess I've kind of been on this journey of like, how can I live well and live right for myself. I'm just naturally inclined to care about that. But seeing ill health and seeing chronic disease and seeing the lives that these people now are forced into living is really, it's not enjoyable. These people are struggling and they don't like it. And there's this saying like, when you have, if you become ill, it's suddenly the biggest problem in your life and it's all you can think about, and you're forced to deal with it. And the way you look after yourself during your life is really going to make a huge impact on whether you need to go through that or not.
100%.
So when people say like, oh, I'm not interested to eat forever, like, you will become interested one day, whether you want to or not. It might be forced upon you. So it's something you need to consider. You can't just shy away from it.
Yeah, again, that's what I struggle with. And be like, I'll be fine.
And to some extent, you can, because there's a lot of rabbit holes of health. Like, you don't want to become, I follow some people on Instagram and I'm like, oh God, just maybe chill out a little bit, because you don't want to, stress isn't good for your health. You need to find that, like everything, like what you're saying with social media is like a double-ended sword. There's like amazing, the access to information, the connection to people. It's amazing, the opportunity it can bring, which I'm now experiencing, which is life-changing. But then on the other hand, like, I didn't have social media for 4 years because it made me feel awful. It was toxic and it sent me down some very bad, addictive habits.
Yeah.
Everything is going to have their opposites. And that's the same with like pursuing health. There's a lot of rabbit holes you could go down, and, it's up to you if you do that or not. But being stressed isn't good for your health, and you can take it too far, I think.
100%. And I because I'm interested in the topic of health and nutrition, I kind of have to step away occasionally and just I know quite a bit, and I know what's healthy. I know what makes me feel good as an individual, and I can get to a point of obsessing about, like I said, like the minutiae of it, like the minerals and like it, because I find it fascinating.
But sometimes it can, like, you don't want to lose yourself in it.
Control with that. But yeah, it's, I mean, planned for the Instagram account, just keep cranking out content and educating people about what it is.
Because I'm still a full-time nurse. I work full-time, so I'm doing what I can. I try to do 2 reels a week, but sometimes at the moment it's just been one. But I'm looking to start a YouTube channel. Hopefully I'm going to do the first video today, because I have a lot to say, and sometimes I feel like Instagram reels, they're very short. You need to get to the point very quickly, and naturally that's not really me. That's why I'm really happy to go on any podcast, because I like to ramble and just think things through and just chat more freely, and Instagram reels don't really allow that. So I'm going to start a YouTube to have more of a ramble. So that's the plan. And then I don't know where it's going to go. It's a really new area in general, like low carb, let alone carnivore. And then to come from someone in healthcare, it's new. So I just have no idea what's going to happen, really. But I'm staying open to it all and just going with it, really.
YouTube handle, I imagine, is
the same.
That Carnivore Nurse.
That Carnivore Nurse, yeah.
Which Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's available. Have you got it already?
Oh, I've already done it. Because I know I will get to it at some point, so I took
Okay.
it now just in case, because no one
Okay.
else is getting that. That's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
name.
No, I'm sure you will, like you've had on Instagram. I'm sure people will love that. Again, it's
Hopefully.
and just because you have that niche of being a nurse, it's kind of
It's quite a niche, a young female carnivore nurse.
yeah. People are like, oh my god,
It's
it's like
interesting. People are intrigued.
going against everything the medical establishment
Hmm.
start. But then again, like the teachings of a doctor and nurses on nutrition is very minimal, right? It's not.
It's extremely minimal. So as a nurse, I don't really remember any training. And if we did, I don't remember it. So it definitely wasn't intense. I have a few friends who are medical students right now, and it's pretty minimal. She does send me sometimes. She's in a lecture and she sends me like, oh, look, they talked about ketogenic diets. And I'm like, oh, brilliant. So that it's coming, but I don't think there's not like an emphasis put on it. And they talk about ketogenic diets still in the area of like, oh, you could do this, or you could do this, or you could do that. It's not like the highlight of a lecture.
Yeah. Have you seen how like I think there's been like numerous studies on people in like the army and the navy and stuff, how they have been looking at kind of when they go out on these expeditions, and there's potential that there'll be environments where they are remote and they may not have access to food, and they've been kind of training them on a low carb keto diet because they need to run off their own
To be
body
able to
fat.
sustain themselves
Yeah,
and
because if you go
feel
out,
okay.
you get lost and your body's expecting glucose on a 2 hour schedule every 2 hours.
Yeah.
You kind of messed up.
No,
But
it's
if you can go
awful.
out and be like, I could sustain this for 2-3 days and be fine because I'm used to running on the 100,000 calories of body fat we all have to
Yeah.
access.
I guess that kind of highlights the benefit of carnivore low carb for shift workers. Obviously, I'm not going out into the army, into the unknown for 3 days, but I do 12-hour shifts as a nurse, and a lot of service workers or lots of people do these long shifts, and having the ability to not be so hungry all the time because you can tap into your own fat, or you're just so satiated because the food you do eat just makes you last longer, is an absolute game changer for work. As a nurse, I can sometimes get my lunch at like 3 in the afternoon, and I've been working since 7. You don't really know when you're going to work, when you're going to be able to go for your break. Sometimes it's quite unpredictable, but that's fine. I'd never have to be like, I'm never sitting there or like doing my job like, oh my God, I can't do this. I just need to go have lunch. I used to be like that when I used to eat pasta and biscuits to keep me going. And it makes the day so much harder when you're living
Yeah,
like that. And, it's a stressful job anyway. So taking that away from it has been a game changer.
100%. I think like a nice gateway for someone to even think about maybe going fully meat based or carnivore or whatever is practice with a little bit of fasting, because from my experience anyway, I feel like the benefits are, especially like mental clarity and being able to just completely forget about food and just get on with what you need to do, like kind of similar, apart from because you don't get the brain fog with when you're eating pretty much meat. You don't get bloating, you don't get fatigue.
Yeah.
And I first felt that when I first started doing like the 16-8, like I wouldn't eat my first meal until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever.
Yeah.
But I remember kind of like wow, like the amount of work and the amount of focus and just not even thinking about food in the
Yeah.
slightest. And then I get to like 12 and I'm like, yeah, I could eat, but I think that'd be probably a decent intro for someone to be like,
Yeah.
you
If
can
you're
feel like
still,
that all the time.
yeah, exactly. That's quite a good point, because you don't actually have to change anything about your diet. You can still eat ultra processed food and all your carbohydrates if you want, if that's like where you're at. But adding like you said, the 16-hour fast and the 8-hour eating window just to your normal diet can give you an insight of what low insulin feels like, because that's really what's going on. You're having really low insulin, and I used to do that when I used to eat carbs. For a lot of that time, I would do 8-hour eating windows, and I always felt that like refreshing, clear mind, energy from nowhere, what seemed like nowhere because I hadn't eaten in the morning when I would eat
Yeah.
maybe at like midday. It's a
Yeah.
really good insight into just like a different state of being.
Yeah, and I think again, like you said, like don't change anything about what you eat in general. Just kind of do what
Yeah.
you do. Because again, like, I would do that when I first started doing fasting in like 2018, and then I would break my fast with maybe a few eggs, egg whites, spinach, and then like a bowl of oatmeal or something.
Mm-hmm.
Breakfast just prolonged, and I'm like, I'd feel like garbage after. Like
Yeah.
the oatmeal would just like I'd gone
It
from
can
being
be
like
really insightful.
a nice level of like flat lining in terms of like just
Mm-hmm.
blood sugar's perfect, running on like just my own body fat, and then like boom, and then drop. And I'm like,
Ketones.
I wish I felt like I did an hour ago.
Yeah, and then
But
it can make you realize that you actually maybe you want to change your food. It's not like, oh, I have to change my diet. It's like, oh, maybe I want to change my diet. Maybe I
exactly.
want
But
to
if you was
change
to
it.
break that fast with like let's say 4, 6 eggs and a steak, you're kind of not going to feel any different. You know, like you're going to
Oh,
kind of
but
feel
you're
like
going to feel better because you're going to have the energy. You're going to
you have
feel
the energy,
sustained.
but you're not
Yet
going to.
you're going to have a lot of the same benefits.
Your blood sugars probably won't move.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. It really is amazing.
Yeah, no, it's but again, I to kind of go back to what we spoke about earlier on, I don't think many people ever tap into that ever. They're constantly running on the carb train.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying carbs are the devil at all, but like never, ever been able to tap into your own
Carbs 3
reserves.
times a day, every single day of the year is not normal. That's
No.
just the truth of the matter. Like the human body is not designed to eat like that. Yes, we would have found carbohydrates. We would have been eating carbohydrates when we stumbled upon that tree in that season. But all day, every day of the year, not normal. Not how we're designed to live.
Or even like from like let's take fruit out of the equation, like from a grain perspective. Like,
Oh yeah, agriculture.
are you going and harvesting the plants, then bringing it back to your camp, and then are you like making the plants edible? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like again, hunting's time consuming, but you're doing this for very like low reward.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you and again, our ancestors would have known that stuff isn't. It's very much fallback food. It's not food.
It's survival food.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's I do know a guy who, again, he eats a decent amount of meat, but he does foraging days.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll eat things like sweet potatoes and berries and nuts, and that'll just be his day.
Mm-hmm.
And he's again maybe going too much into it, but he's trying to mimic what it would be on unsuccessful hunt days.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have these foods that are not preferential,
Mm-hmm.
like tubers and a few berries and nuts. But he does that in kind of almost
Quite interesting though.
yeah.
I
So
guess it could connect you like back to your roots in a way, like
he
because
almost deems that as
there's something
fasting.
about not, yeah, and there's something, there's lessons to learn by not having what you want, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So like I think there's that, and I'm sure I read about a culture who forgot what culture it was, but basically they will go vegetarian or vegan or whatever for long periods of time. And like I think like the vegans are like, this is there's a culture who's done this, but they do it because they understand that meat is the real nutrition, so that they see it as like fasting from the thing that the body really needs. So it's not like they're saying like vegan
That's
is the
like a
best.
mental, it's like a mental exercise as well, I
Yeah, so they're
suppose,
like,
and gratitude
and that's kind of what I'm saying as well about like people are saying like there's or at least it used to be like earn your carbs, like go and work out, earn your carbs. But I'm also like, I feel like people should, movement is massive and key, but I feel like people should almost earn their protein too, because hunting an animal, if we're trying to like live and almost like tap into these primal bodies, that would be work and hard work. And I think trying to mimic a hunt is not maybe a bad idea. You know what I mean? Like,
I think we should just move our bodies regardless, I guess. I don't know if for me, I couldn't see it as like something I need, like food is something I need to earn as such.
not earn, but pushing your body. Like, again, like some people argue that the reason why we have the ability to run and jog long distances is because we
We
evolved
would be hunting down.
chasing things. So the reward would be, I don't know, mammoth.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we're designed to move, no doubt about it. And we're in a strange situation now where most people don't even walk.
Yeah.
You know, walking is amazing. I feel like the amount of people that will take the bus down the road is like, what the? So in that context, you know, like walk to the shop, you know, go buy your meat yourself. Don't drive there.
Yeah, I think they
Those
say
sort of
like the
things.
optimal like movements for humans are either walking or sprinting.
Or I would agree with that. I'd also add walking with a heavy load. I actually like doing something called rucking, which I
Nice.
think is a really under what's the word I'm looking for?
Rated.
Underrated form of exercise. It's extremely passive. You don't have to put much into it, but it's basically walking with a heavy load. I have this like slab of very heavy metal and I just slip it in the back in my rucksack and I just walk around. It's quite funny. Like if someone was to find out I had like 10 kgs of metal just in my bag, they'd probably think, what the hell? But it's really good. And I used to do it a lot more. I'm going to get back into it. I would walk like 10K just aimlessly and for no real reason except to just do it.
Yeah.
With this really heavy thing in my bag. And it felt so good. It's so passive, it's so accessible, and it has a really low injury rate. So anyone can ruck. I'm going to make a video on this actually.
And again, but that's mimicking bringing back food, right?
Exactly. It's mimicking. Hey, you know, we would have caught something, a big, who knows what, an elk, whatever. And then we would have had to carry this load home. And rucking is made even easier because the weight distribution is really even, and you have this lovely backpack on. We would have had we had to chop it up and then carry a weird leg or something on our shoulders, and it would have been really awkward. So even rucking with a rucksack is easier than how we would have had it, but still it somewhat aligns back to that. And I think it's a really good exercise. And if you can take it up a hill, even better.
Yeah, other than my unconditional love for her, I do enjoy when I strap my daughter to her. We have a little harness, and I was like,
you've got your own little rucking bag.
Yeah.
That cries. Brilliant.
The other day we went for a walk, and we had I'm not sure if you had the same weather. We had like the random 17 degrees, almost spring-ish.
Yeah.
Fake spring.
Spring for one day. It was lovely.
Yeah. So we took the dogs and Nora for a walk into a local forest, and I forgot that my dogs are probably not climate because it switched quickly, right, from 5 degrees to 17 real quick. And my oldest dog Lily, she was we got 2.5 kilometers into it, she was dying. I was like, okay, this 20-pound ruck with Nora, she was on the back of me, I'm gonna have to put Lily 20 pounds as well. So I was gonna do a 40-pound ruck.
Yeah, and that's a really good workout. It really is.
Yeah, no, it's I was like, I'll carry you the rest of the way. It was I love those, and again, it doesn't take much thought. It's you just
it's very passive, I think, because a lot of you need to motivate yourself to do exercise, and you're not going to go from no exercise to, I mean, you might, but it's hard. So no exercise to suddenly 3 days at the gym, maybe that's just not going to be sustainable for some people, or they just don't have the time. So walking, and then if you want a heavy bag on top of that, you could go you go walk to work, go walk to the shop, do your normal life. That's why I call it passive. You don't have to go out your way, but you're still doing it.
Yeah.
So it's really good.
No, and again, I love doing stuff outside of the gym. I do go to the gym occasionally, but I kind of hate the gym culture.
The gym is quite a strange place. I've had my periods in the gym, and it's just it makes sense because it's all there and you can move your muscles and stuff. But I like to be outside as well.
Yeah.
Running on a treadmill. I don't know. It just feels a bit strange sometimes. I've gone nowhere. I've ran 5K and I'm right here.
just feel a bit
it doesn't feel right.
dystopian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure I've read somewhere that it was like originally the treadmill was like a torture device.
Yeah, I believe that.
I think it was like in like the Victorian ages, they used it as like someone on it, and then like it'd power like a water wheel.
Yeah.
But it was just like, yeah,
That
constant.
sounds about right. And also like the way if you're running on the streets, you know, the terrain is uneven, you're dodging that way, you're going that way, you're going up, you're going down. The way it's going to test your muscles and your stability in your joints and improve that is so much more beneficial than a flat normal treadmill.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. I mean, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and again,
Yeah, me too.
apologies that it took forever. It's just
That's okay.
trying to navigate life and trying to get stuff sorted. But I do endeavor to make more of these episodes. I do enjoy it, and I find it really insightful speaking to people like yourself. And yeah, I mean, is there anything else you kind of want to discuss, or?
I mean, we covered a lot.
Covered
I
a
feel
lot.
like that was
Covered a
pretty
lot.
good.
No, yeah, and I think your YouTube channel will pop off like your Instagram account
Hopefully.
has. And you can start getting like YouTube revenue too. I mean, it might not
I
be
know,
like,
right? I can't even imagine getting another source of income. Hopefully, that would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Like, I don't know if people have already reached out already, like Carnivore brands or crisps or stuff to kind of.
Yeah, you get a lot of skincare, which is really cool skincare products made from tallows, which I think are great.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've not been very. It's not for me. I've not been very like brand driven like for this because I have my job. I have my focus in nursing still. It really is just like an education to just. I just want people to be aware that this thing exists, and you can try it if you want. You know, there's just like people haven't even heard of it. So that's my main goal here.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why
create the conversation.
People are attracted to kind of your content too. It's because you're not selling anything. You're just
yeah. I'm not so interested in that. I support. I like think carnivore brands and like these skincare or carnivore bar. That's a big one. I think they're great. Yeah. I support the carnivore and animal products for sure, but I'm not. You know, I'm not very. That's not my direction.
Cool.
If it comes, great.
No, well, like I said, I really appreciate you spending almost 2 hours with me this morning.
I know. I'll talk carnivore with anyone.
Yeah, no, I could talk about nutrition and everything
it's fascinating.
all day. I'd probably bore most people, but anyone that wants to talk about it, I'm always open to discussing it. But yeah, no, I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. I enjoyed it.
Cool. Yeah, and obviously, anyone who ever watches this, listens to this, can find Lucy the Carnivore Nurse on Instagram.
At Carnivore Nurse, Instagram and YouTube, hopefully.
YouTube, and then that's kind of your only social media handle
at the moment. Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
Cool. Well, yeah. Again, thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Cheers.